It is amongst the most iconic marathons in the world. The New York Marathon has this time attracted 130,000 applicants, and 50,000 runners are expected to cross that finish line behind me. Starting this year and for the next 8 years, it's going to be called the TCS New York Marathon. This is not just a marketing and advertising effort by TCS. After all, North America is TCS's largest geography in terms of revenue. And New York, the financial capital of the world, is home to the largest banking and financial institutions, which forms the biggest vertical in terms of business for TCS. So this is part of TCS's strategy to make it to the top 3 in the global IT services business. Are you a New York Marathon regular?
I've been coming for the last few years. One of my buddies runs them often.
Any idea who the new sponsor for the marathon is?
Actually, I think it's a bank. Yeah, it's TCS, right?
Do you have any idea who TCS is?
I don't.
Typically, I was always used to it being ING. So in the past, the sponsor really didn't mean as much as the runners were supporting. But if I didn't know about it, I'm sure a lot of us didn't. So I think it's good for the company to get exposure, at least in the U.S.
I go to all the marathons. I was just in Chicago 2 weeks.
Oh, lovely.
I have 2 sons in there.
Okay, so I have a question.
What?
Did you recognize who the sponsor for this year's marathon
Yeah,
is?
what is it, TBS?
TCS.
Yes.
Never heard of it before?
Yes, no.
No?
Last year was AIM. I knew AIM.
You won't believe how many people have mailed me in the last 2 days. People who are from India who are here, not for a race, for something else. And people who live here who have nothing to do with marathon. And they've been mailing me. I was in Central Park, I was in New York. It's great to see the TCS brand everywhere. And you know, I think it's just a good feeling. I think it's definitely getting the word out there about TCS. Millions of people are coming to know who TCS is. I told you yesterday that our brand lags are who we are, and that's something that we have got to bridge.
Both brand and business are running hard. After all, leadership is a marathon, and for TCS, the finish line has just come into sight. Having broken into the top 10, TCS ranks as the 6th largest global IT firm by revenue. By profit, it is the 2nd largest, as also by headcount. But geography-wise, it lags behind, coming in as the 8th largest in North America, 15th in Europe, 8th in the UK, and 25th in Japan. The day before the big race, we visit the finish line at Central Park, and I asked Chandra how he measures the quality of revenue versus size and market share.
First of all, what's more important is to continue to gain mind share with our customers, to be their strategic partners. I think at the moment we are doing very well. If you really look at the growth rate as well as the absolute revenue that we add, we rank number 1 among
this is your
companies.
incremental revenue.
Our incremental revenues every year. So we seem to be doing things right now. We just have to keep up the momentum.
But I'm sure it's part of your ambition to be amongst the top 3 global IT service players in the world. What will it take and how long will it take TCS to get to the top 3?
I think, it's very difficult to predict timeline, but I think we are
before your
doing
next,
well.
before your third term, before your third term as CEO?
So let's see.
Okay. The thing about size, Chandra, is it comes with its incumbent issues. Like, for instance, you may rank 6th or 7th in terms of revenue, but when it comes to people, you rank number 2, right? At above 310,000, I think 318,000. So IBM is the only one with a larger man-force or manpower than you are. Even Accenture, whose revenues are much ahead of yours, is far lower in terms of headcount. What does that mean really in terms of the quality of your growth, the quality of your revenue? Because you're 6th or 7th in revenue with the 2nd largest workforce. Is that efficient?
I think a good question, but I would like to give you 2 perspectives.
Okay.
The first perspective is that the size of the workforce you have pretty much depends on the geography footprint from where you deliver the services. If your cost base of those locations is lower, that will also reflect in the overall revenue you see. So that's the first aspect that has to be taken into account.
Okay.
But specifically on the quality of revenues, I would say that TCS today ranks among one of the best companies with the way we partner with clients. We see the traction with clients, with the kind of work we do. If you see the thought leadership engagements that we do, I think we get fair share of our deal.
So are you saying that revenue per employee, where you don't rank amongst the top 10, or profitability per employee, where I think even a player like HCL Tech is ahead of you, these are not metrics that you sort of treat important? These are not metrics that we should measure TCS by, because they don't tell a very flattering story.
No, all these metrics are important, but you just have to see them in the overall perspective, and they are important to the extent that you drive your business and grow your business in a manageable fashion. But at the same time, you've got to see the revenue per employee in the context of the locations in which we serve.
I'll keep coming back to this question. I'll tell
Sure.
you why, because in my head it also connects with the perception that Indian IT services runs across the world as being a low-cost body shopping, sort of business. For some reason, when people talk of IBM and Accenture and the quality of consulting services that they offer, they don't talk about Indian companies in the same breath.
No, I think today the brand is much different from what it was a few years ago. Today, if you look at our client segments, they have a single list in terms of the company they want to work with. TCS pretty much is in the top of that list. And there are verticals in which we are stronger, there are situations in which we are stronger, there are situations in which somebody else is stronger. And so you win in the places you are stronger, in the places in which you have gaps, you invest.
Let me rephrase the question then and ask you this. 5 or 7 years ago, in India, you had Infosys, which was behind you in revenues but ahead of you in profitability, and if I may say so also, ahead of you in image. Infosys did a very good job with that. And then you had globally IBM, Accenture, Capgemini, all the other Asian players, NTT, the Latin American players, many of them ahead of you. Do you feel that on both ends now, you've broken away from those pressures? Infosys, unfortunately, has not had some very good years in the recent past. And you're saying that you're top of mind when it comes to the kind of work that IBM and Accenture used to do. So you're almost there.
I think, first of all, what I would like to say is that I don't worry so much about competition like the way you seem to do. Okay? But when it comes to our own positioning, all I would say is that if you look at our journey, we have been consistently ranking higher in every single metric. We are the only tech company in the top 50 the companies in the recent survey.
Yeah.
So there are many metrics in which we measure up, but that is not to say that that is the point of arrival. So these are things that give you an indication in terms of you're on a journey to get where you want.
Since you mentioned journey, I want to try and put this in two different ways. A, if you can talk us through what you think have been some of the transformational changes that TCS has been through in getting to this leadership position over the last 5 to 10 years, right from the time when you were COO to your first term as CEO. The reason I'm asking you this is because then I want to ask you about the unfinished agenda.
I think first of all, a culture or a belief that we can be the leading company irrespective of the size in all the parameters we want to measure. So it's a question of rallying the troops, getting the leadership team to aspire very high. And that's something that we have done. The second thing is the ability to identify specific market opportunities and then have an entrepreneurial spirit to be able to scale them.
So you're referring to the restructuring you all did about 5 or 6 years ago, actually longer than that, 2006, 2008.
No, 2008-9.
8-9, where you reorganized the business into 23 different business structures with 23 different CEOs. That's what you're referring to, right?
Part of that is the organization structure.
Okay.
But part of that is putting the processes by which the decision making is totally decentralized.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's the second part, I would say. The third one is the entire communication inside. We have very quickly migrated to our internal social media. So where all our employee communication network it's not a one-way communication. It's how the troops communicate, how they connect, how they share ideas, how they question, how they form communities, and how those communities interact. So all those things I think we have been able to migrate pretty quickly.
So I imagine you're going to build on all of this for the next 5 years, right?
Yeah.
But besides this, what's your unfinished agenda, unfulfilled ambition for TCS at this point?
I think there are a few. First of all, we are about 315,000 professionals today, and we will continue to scale. So
More size?
how do you? Yeah, definitely we will continue to scale because the model works, and we will as we scale, we need to be able to maintain the agility. Even I would say that we have to become more agile. How do we do that? What kind of tweakings that we need to do in the structure? That will remain an important item. I think the second thing I would say is that there will be business model transitions as we go. Okay, because the technology is forcing those.
So this you mean digital, SMAC,
Digital,
all of that?
as companies evolve, I'm not talking about our companies, the companies we serve, as they adopt these technologies and invent their business models, they are looking at what is core and what is context in their, and the way to support them in their core and the way to support them in their context will change. That will require new business models. We can call it software platforms, we can call it SaaS, PaaS, whatever you want.
There are lots of abbreviations.
So I think we have to make those transitions very effectively. The third I would say is that our brand has to catch up.
Catch up with what?
Catch up with who we are in terms of the capability we bring and the thought leadership we bring to customers. And I would argue, and probably anyone would agree, that there is a gap between who we are and what the brand perception is in some markets, not in every market, at least in some markets. So we need to work on that. So one of the things that we really need to fix in this next 5 years is for the brand to get its rightful place.